Okay, welcome to Mercantile Radio. We've got another international guest. An absolute pleasure here to talk to Andrew Triggs Hodge. Hodgie, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Mate, very well. We've had a few technical issues getting connected tonight, and we've finally made it, and we were talking off air. Great to hear how everything's going for you right now. I wanted to start with, particularly knowing how well you performed at Olympic Games and in major events. You seem to be a top-line performer when the pressure was on. So let's go back to 2008 Beijing Olympic Games. The Aussies are out in front, maybe by three-quarters of a length. You guys always were going to wind it home. I'm fascinated to know for our audience, what was going through your mind? What do you remember going through your mind? Were you confident you were going to get there, or was there sort of that pressure feeling? What was that like for you?
That was a blooding. That was a into the deep end type event. Yeah, look, so we came in feeling pretty good. I think we're looking forward to our usual clashes with uh, the Dutch and the Kiwis, and the Germans, and through the heat and the semi, that whole event got rewritten. I think that's the first thing to sort of like,
Right.
to flag was we were the only crew from the previous year's final
To make it through.
to make it through. And, what was the year before with Munich where we came fourth?
Yep.
So, we were like, holy cow, like, what has just happened? So, overnight, the whole event had been rewritten. And obviously there was this Aussie crew who was looking pretty spicy. Um, so, for the final, we were like, we just didn't know what was going to happen. So we really kind of focused on, all the stuff we'd done well in training. Jürgen's, big thing is he's a real psychologist. So he
Yep.
gave us, and what he always does is, the confidence, like, guys, you are going to win, like, bolt on. It's going to be a tough race, all this sort of stuff, but you guys have done it. You've done it in training, believe in that. So we sat on the start line, and I remember feeling like, great. I was like a pig in shit. I was like, this is it. Let me at it. Brilliant. And, I tried to say something motivational to the guys, on the start line. It came out all wrong. They laughed at me. It was like, come on, Hodge, shut up. Just sit there and do your job. I was like, all right, all right. So anyway, we set off, and yeah, we clicked into a nice rhythm. All felt good. And, we definitely sort of picked up a bit of a, uh, trait of lifting it towards the end.
Yep.
And I think we were trying relatively hard to not do that anymore. Jürgen hated it. He hated us being down in halfway. And so, we thought, okay, well, let's give it, let's try and address some of those things. And so, we went through the first 500, 750, we're settling nicely, 1,000. That's where you take your first sort of checks, and you sort of like have a little, you look out the side of your eyes, and I'm like, shit, I can't even do that turn. I keep going around, all right, what the hell are they doing up there? And, in my head, I was like, great, well, look, if you're gonna try and break a crew, you gotta do something. You can't wish them down. And
Yep.
they were doing it. They were absolutely like, fucking brilliant. This is on. So we I think we had like a lift at 750 to go. And I was like,
Yep.
good, right, let's make this lift count. We're going to roll them in, and we're going to do our usual thing. So we go through the lift, and we're going, like, Jesus, they're still miles away. And again, like the crew felt really solid. The crew, like the rhythm felt very recognizable. It's exactly what we wanted to do. We were just like well over a length down. I was like, Jesus. Christ. So, you start to get into the bandstands, into the area, with all the crowd.
Yep.
And this was like the first moment. I've heard people talk about it, but the concept of like panicking in a boat, and you go one of two ways: you fall apart, or you panic better than anyone else.
Yep.
And yes, we had a general uplift, so we knew we could rise, but I just was like, no, we need to like do something crazy right now, and that's what we did. It was as close to blind panic in complete uniform, togetherness, the power going down. I mean, like I'm naturally not a sprinter. I was listening to the call with Cam, and you kind of gave us some credit for that. But Pete, Stevie, they're really powerful guys. My job was to make sure we kept the boat in a recognizable rhythm, laid out as much as I could. I mean, I'm not hiding from the pain here. You definitely saw that on all our faces across the finish line. But, we had to just do the thing that you do in training that you think that I can't do that in a race.
Yep.
And then with all the adrenaline and the aurora of the Olympics and the crowds, you discover that you can. There is that one-off 500 where you pull out like, your 105, 107% type speed.
Yep.
And you're like, great, let's just do that in a race, or joking around. But, actually, when the time comes, you need to be prepared to go there. And it was an incredible, I mean, to feel the boat lift and just keep lifting, and it responding. And then slowly, the tunnel vision was going, but you could feel like we were making an impact. And it was, look, it's a great video, right? It's a great one to watch and show people. A good crowd pleaser. But no, it was phenomenal to be part of. And I don't even think I had it hard. My mum broke a rib, I think, in the crowd because everyone was going crazy. Yeah, it was, I couldn't hug her afterwards because she was like, no.
No way.
So, it was mental. It was a great way to start an Olympic career, with a medal like that.
Oh, mate, it was absolutely awesome. And I think one of the things, and Maxi in his interview, as you heard, they did a great job, put you guys under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And it was amazing when they described that they'd made their effort, I think about 750 to go.
Yeah,
and
oh, damn it.
And they've gone, they've made an effort, but you've made an effort at the same time. They're like, we haven't got any further away.
Yeah, exactly. And then look, I mean, all credit to them. You got to have crazy crews to do crazy stuff. That's where like sport exists in, in the entertainment space. It's got to be fun to watch, and you got to have people who will dare to do stupid things. And I love them for doing that. It was absolutely, the worst thing that could have happened was, let's do our sort of, because you could say like their profile was probably quite flat, I think. I don't know if it maybe even zipped, but it was, it's not a normal profile because they tried to do something crazy. And, I don't think we were blasé or anything. Like we committed to a 100% plan. Like, the profile was what we wanted to do. But crazy Aussie crew was just doing something absolutely mental stuff. We were like, but and then that tested us. It was brilliant. It was a great way. It was a great event.
Yeah. And I think what I love, and I know, we'll talk more about our race in 2012, but when you come up against competitors that bring the best out in you, that's all you can ask for in the sport, right? So go back to that complete cycle, because you had success early in the four, and then you have the Munich result that wasn't quite what you expected. Like that ability to stay confident in the program. Obviously, Jürgen does a very good job of laying the foundation with you physically and the work that you do technically and mentally. Like what was going through your mind even 1 to 2 years out, and that sort of stage of building up to Beijing? What was that like for that 4 years? Because it wasn't just smooth sailing all the way through, right?
No, we so I was in Athens in the 8th, where we came last, 9th out of 9 in the 8th, which was a terrible way to start an Olympic career.
But there was illness, right? You had illness in your crew. Who was sick again?
Well, we had TJ. He had something for the heat, but let's not mess it up. We were a very underperforming crew,
right?
Running into that event, and there was a lot going on in the team. Pinsons and cracking a lot of change into the four. The old four had then been split up, so there was a lot of dissent and frustration, and then just the performance concerns were big. I think Jürgen had a huge concern is Paul wasn't going to win. I mean, and look, and they did it by that much. And it cost the team a lot. The 8 came last. The pair I think underperformed. I know the women were right, but that was all with Tomo. So for the men's side, it was a very, very disruptive time.
Yep.
And so, and going into Athens, I'd won the final trials. So, but, admittedly, Pentington and Cracknell weren't racing in it. But, that was the first time I sort of really wow, I can do something in this sport. So I came into Athens thinking, great. And we'd won a bronze medal the year before in 2003 in Munich.
That's
right. Not Munich, Milan. So we were tails up, go, that's brilliant. But as we went further into the season, we had some real issues. And actually, you learn more from a loss, right?
Yeah.
And that whole journey through to Athens was, that was sort of absolute critical learning, of sort of how not to do it. A lot of reflection on my role in that place. What was I taking? What was I giving? What was I breaking? All these sorts of things. And that really helped create a focus for me and what my role needed to be. And then I left Athens and went to Oxford, and under Robin Bourne-Taylor as the president, who is, one of the probably finest team builders. He's in a high performance environment. He's absolutely, my favorite. He's amazing. He's challenging. He did all the right things to get the best out of people, but it's not a comfortable place necessarily. And also the guys who came into that crew were phenomenal individuals. And the way we bonded, the way we created a team. And then we went up against Cambridge, who were, odds-on favourites. Again, TJ was stroking their boat. They had all these Germans. They had a lovely rhythm. They looked beautiful. All this sort of stuff. And, we were sort of the kind of meat grinders at Oxford. And again, I learned so much about, how to build a fast boat. It's, this sort of intersection of technique, of physicalness, but psychology. How do you bring people together and make them believe in something that isn't possible on paper? And sitting on the water against Cambridge and looking at this boat and thinking, no, you do a lot of things right, but you're not going to have this one. And the grit and the fight and the sort of doggedness of that Oxford crew was just phenomenal. And then once you kind of put your nose in front and then you feel it giving returns, then you can row wonderfully.
Row nice.
Yeah, exactly. So, again, that learning, that sort of 2004, 2005, then going into the 4, going off to our first world in Gifu, getting the first world championships medal. That year, that 12 months, that completely changed my whole career, my whole outlook on rowing. What was the sort of measures of success and the methods and the processes to do it. So then going from Athens and the boat race through to 2008, there was a lot of anger. There was a lot of frustration bubbling inside me. I just wanted to break stuff. I wanted to smash it to pieces, including myself. It was a big period of reinvention, and, there's no longer a Pinsent or Redgrave to be that sort of anchor man. So it needed the Jürgen's crew needed a new stamp. And I think with Pete, and then Stevie, and then Alex Partridge and Tom James, the 5, we really smashed it up. It was a chance to kind of, close one chapter and open another. And if you're going to open a chapter, you've got to make a mark. So, we went hard, and, all through the altitude camps, through the long distance camps, we were just trying to sort of rewrite or write our own story. And I think Beijing culminated in that moment, sort of 300 meters to go. Right. How's this story going to end? Are we going to Is it is it all this big with a silver medal? No bloody
no
way.
chance.
So yeah, so we were kind of in the driving seat, and choom, off you go.
Mate, that's absolutely awesome. And I share a little story. Tom Courtney, who I think was over in the UK through the
Yeah, Tom.
period. So it was interesting.
And he was the
came back.
coach of my club.
Well, there you go, right? So
Yeah.
he comes back. We come back after Athens. He's in Australia in one of those years, and he goes to me. He goes, I found someone that's just like you. And I'm going, what do you mean? He goes,
What?
Andrew Triggs Hodge. Andrew Triggs Hodge. He's going to do what you've done in the sport. He's going to do what you've done in the sport.
Is that right? You never told me that.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, that's a great honour. That is that's the best thing anyone's ever said to me.
Yeah. No, his thing to me was he saw the way you were going about things, and it was raw and unrefined at that stage. Like, so, and that ability to then step out through that and really become focused and harnessed. His whole thing was you could just see you having that great career, and plenty of coaches make bold predictions. But I remember that the day you actually made the comment, because I didn't even know who you were. I knew of your name in the British team, and I knew some of the other names, but all of a sudden when he's come out with this thing, and I was like, and then in 2005, I was like, Tom's right.
Well, good on Tom. Yeah, great guy. I miss him. He was coach at Malby for a good few years, and we pushed him hard. I think there's a bit of that raw energy coming through. I think he wins a few times, but
Correct.
that's fun.
That nice defiance. So tell us, and you mentioned Pete Reed there before, and I mentioned off air that I'd ask you the question about him. Tell us about how important it was for you to have someone who you could go through so many of those campaigns with, who you just knew that you could trust and rely upon. What was that like for you?
Absolutely critical. I think, I mean, look, Pete and I's relationship is, it's sort of like family. Like we sit on the opposite side of the spectrum. He is Navy man. He likes the process, and when he gets the process and believes in it, he will execute it better than anybody else in the world. Beyond his strength and power and technique, all that sort of stuff. Obviously, he's just fantastic, but his attitude to doing something absolutely spot on, brass buttons, the whole thing, he is world class. I'm sort of the opposite. I like to break stuff. I like to kind of create new things. And a bit of blue sky thinking, look behind rocks, doggedly try to sort of, doggedly try to break stuff. But then when you find something that's good, how you nurture it and get it to breathe and to live and to grow. And together, we were able to achieve some really fantastic stuff. It was hard. I made Pete's life really hard. And, he challenged me equally. But that having such a close bond and relationship, and obviously forged at Oxford, so he had that unifying identity. He's a state school kid. I'm a state school kid. He came from the countryside down in the west, southwest. I'm from Yorkshire. So, there's lots of things that we had common ground on.
Yeah.
But we just looked at problems from the opposite side. And there are times when we wouldn't speak to each other for like weeks. Like, it's not been plain sailing, but I think, we had this flooding into the sport where we were brothers. And I say this today, like he's a brother. He's absolutely, he's a phenomenal human being, and it's my privilege to know him. But it's an honor and something I'm very proud of to call him, such a close friend. He's a good guy.
Love it.
But
it was,
sorry.
It was always something I love seeing you two guys together, because you move slightly differently, You clearly
for
had
sure.
different temperaments. What you just described there makes perfect sense. And that's the yin and the yang of the pair, of a pair working, but it works inside the four, the combination of the four and other boats like the eights and stuff. But it just seemed that once you guys locked in together, that was going to help every single combination you went in, right? So I think so really, really cool.
Yeah, no, it was. It's yeah. And that's the thing about rowing, right? You know, it is the ultimate team sport. You are trying to do something in as close to uniformity as possible. But that's the sort of secret sauce is you have to have different perspectives. You have to have different body types, different attitudes, different eyes on the whole thing, and how you bring it together through that tough period of, no, I don't agree. Like, we've got to try, you're fighting each other. Those long sort of hour, 1 hour, a half hour to kind of like wash ups after each session. That's where the magic happens. And I think, with Pete, it was a magic mix.
Absolutely love it. So let's talk then about the pairs. And obviously, you guys went toe to toe with the Kiwis, and
Bloody Kiwis turned up, didn't they?
Yeah, well and truly. But he describes, and I think it was the World Championship in Karapiro, which is where he was blown away by how competitive you guys were, and just how you pushed them, they pushed you, and that was the whole new standard being formed. What was your take on that whole pair experience? Because I reckon I saw some of the best rowing I've ever seen in any pairs rowing at all. To see two pairs do what they did over those years were extraordinary. And we know how good they are, but you guys were right there with them and taking it on. And I'll tell you, technically, I loved it. When I saw you guys row really long a couple of times, like Karapiro and even towards the second half of Bled, that looked like you were flying. So tell us about your perspective about pair combination and pair battle.
Oh, man. Yeah, look, so we finished Beijing, and again, it was sort of part of that idea of, we got to break stuff. I was desperate to kind of find the next step. I always had this attitude of kind of reinventing yourself after each Olympiad. There's no point taking the old rower into a new one, because someone will work out how to beat it. You've got to break it. And, it's minute margins. When you do it, like a training drill, you do one sort of thing and you make a big change, but then when you go back to normal rowing, it's so small, the influence.
Yep.
So if you want to make a change, you've got to make a big change, here and now in the present, and then that might have an incremental effect in the latter stages. So going into the pair was let's expose ourselves maximum. Let's see what's out there. Let's test ourselves. And I remember going in, and I've been with pair in the final trials since 2005.
Yep.
And we'd always done really well, like the long distance trials, short distance, like the 2K, even the sprint stuff, we were sort of really, flying. So we thought, like, great, let's just go have some fun, let's discover something. And then a Kiwi pair turned up, like, damn, this is going to be harder than I thought. So we went through the World Cup series, and they just banked us, like, they were like rocketing. So that sort of focused the mind. And then in Poznan in 2009, what was it? 2009. This was, we always have an uplift, with the program. It's the way Jürgen builds it. So we thought, right, this is going to be. And then I managed to get some horrible bug and had the will drop out of me. So I lost quite a few kilos, and I was not in good shape. But we still managed to challenge them pretty close.
Yep.
Like, I think we got to within a second of them, and so we came off that event being like, damn it, I really should have listened to Pete about being better hygienics, like washing my hands every 5 minutes. And to his credit, he never told me I told you so. But
there you go.
It's very deep. So then, Karapiro was the big one. That's like, right.
Yep.
This is the time we can write Poznan, and we knew the challenge. So the training that year, Jürgen's skill in coaching the physical side is to try and, get the best out of people, push them on, but equally pull them back. He's
Yep.
seen a number of athletes who have overcooked it, and athletes who just tell him, no, I'm going to keep going, and then blow their doors off. And he's like, come on, I saw this coming. So, he had to pull us back a fair bit.
Yep.
And, I saw that as a win. I'd like, if Jürgen's telling me to slow down, then I'm in the right place.
Yep.
So that was sort of my mission through that year, was just to go as hard, just to push my body as hard as I could. And, that's what we did. And yeah, the rowing was fantastic. I think we went through some amazing, I can't remember many of the times and sort of any sort of standout moments. Pete will have it all logged in his head. He'll have it, down to the second. But no, I remember the final, and I remember, I remember going through to 500 to go, and we were sort of like nudging in front. We were as close as we've ever been.
Yep.
And it really is an interesting place being in a pair in that position versus being in a 4 or an 8. You really can kind of lean on your crew, believe in them to believe in you. And
yes. Yep.
There was a moment I was thinking like, so crazy, just don't catch the crab. And in Karapiro, we had that bit of a crosswind. We had that, there was some really challenging conditions. We had to kind of challenge ourselves a huge amount on, just tap down, just got to clear the waves. If we took away, we're dead.
Yep.
We had to kind of spend a lot of time on the boat awareness.
Yep.
And so anyway, we got through, and almost to the end, where it starts to flatten out, and we're like, great, we can go now. We always speed up. We always get closer to them in the, we do our usual 4 things. And actually, my thought was, right, don't throw away the gold, or don't throw away the lead to kind of get a bigger lead.
Yeah.
So it was sort of like maintain, like, just keep doing what we're doing. And in some way, I guess I didn't panic like we did in Beijing.
Interesting.
And maybe they did.
Yeah.
And, you are more vulnerable in a pair. And if you panic badly, it goes a lot worse.
Yep.
And if you panic in a 4, and I think, and there was that part of it which just checked. And I think, they had the home crowd, leading them in, and it took on this, just started to watch them come back, and it was like, you just sort of realize what's happening. And it was kind of like foot on the other shoe for a lot of the career, in the 4. I mean, I have a huge amount of respect for the Kiwis. Like the way they trained, their attitude, again, the dynamic. You got 2 very opposite people there. How they work together and how they fed off each other. So fair credit to them. They put together an awesome race, and they did what racers should do. And I didn't have the answer for that. But I learned so much about myself through those few years. And you just wish, part of me wishes, like, damn it, I just wish we could have beaten the men. But then perhaps we wouldn't have then got to race the great Jürgen in London 2012. Silver linings and all that. But
we can end the podcast there, Hodgie.
Yeah, exactly. So no, like Karapiro was phenomenal. One of our proudest moments in a pair. What we managed to do, just in the challenging conditions, we didn't pull in, but also taking the Kiwis so close. And then and it's interesting what you said about Bled, like the second half, because we really messed up the first half. Like it was just short and stabby. It really pissed me off. And, the water again was challenging because it's for a different way. It has, Bled
Moving, right?
just has a long rolling,
Yeah.
and then coming through the second half, we always had a bit of we tried to have a halfway lift, and then suddenly it clicked. And then we started to fly and, we were chomping back on them. But then once you're leading in a pair like that, you can just sit on a crew leg and come back to half leg. But I never really knew how much they were pushed towards the end there. We gave them a huge, huge advantage. We were never going to get back to beat them. And I think they could have always just, flicked a switch and taken it up a bit and kept it half leg if they needed to.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I enjoyed my time in the pair. It was really tough. Learned a huge amount. Wouldn't swap it. Definitely would love to have, would do it again. No silver medals. It's all part of the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I was watching, obviously, from afar at the time, and to watch the Karapiro race, like I was sitting there going, that was truly inspirational to watch pairs going as fast as both crews were, clearing out like they were, and then trading blows. That for me had me sort of going, like, if I'm going to be back in this sport again, you want to be a part of that sort of stuff. And then when I saw Bled, and that was the thing I thought about Bled watching it, was having known in the 4 that it was joggly early, and we sort of approached it, which was we're really going to attack that to see if we can get others off guard, and then out the other side of it, see what happens then. But then when I went back and watched your video of the pair, I was like, so it looks like you haven't been able to quite find your rhythm, settle in, but you're not spending a lot of energy. You've given away margin, but as soon as it clicked in, it was like, oh, now they're going again. Here they go. And that was one of the things I thought with you and Reedy, that when you guys rode long in the pair and also in the 4, that's when the boat really flew. It had a real sort of magic about it. So let's talk 2012 then, and obviously our sort of enjoyable battle. What was it like at your side of the ledger? Because I know that I was sitting there going, we didn't know what was going to happen with the GB4. We didn't know who was going to be put in the boat and all that sort of stuff in the end, but we were waiting and seeing. As soon as I knew that you guys were in, I got more excited back home in Australia going, this is really cool. Like, we've got no other boat to go to. We're in the 4. This is what we're doing. We're just trying to work out who the combination is. What was your experience like for that 2012 year?
God, good question. Sorry, rattling through some memories here. Look, it was challenging in terms of, the repeat journeys of, 2004, being on the flip side of that decision, or one step away, but seeing how the repercussions sort of go through the team.
Slow through, right?
Yeah. It was a different team. So there was, obviously different dynamics, different coaches going on, but, we had the cold light of day, we had a job to do. Jürgen had made the decision. It wasn't our decision. We supported it, obviously. And building a 4 from, a fast pair, but from the half of another very fast 4, is wets your lips with excitement, but also present challenges. There's going to be some ideas, some tensions, some stuff to work out. And that's the sport. That's like, great, let's get into it. And we did, again, we discovered a lot very quickly. There was a lot of, obviously, 3 of us were the same from Beijing. And there was a very similar process actually with the 5 in terms of with Alex Partridge and with Alex Gregory. And we were kind of, again, like discovering a new way to do things for all of us. Alex Gregory being the new guy, he was renowned as being and he was a superbly technical athlete. His feel for the boat. And then we had obviously TJ, who was, again, another superbly technical athlete from the other end of the boat, so more characteristic of as a stroke, whereas Gregor's was more of a bow. And then you had me and Pete, who were like, I guess, relatively two meatheads, who just like to smash our heads against brick walls and do it ball out work.
We'll get through. We'll get through.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so we were discovering a lot. And I think, again, it kind of goes back to what you're saying, just length, which, Alex having bucket loads,
Yeah.
it was just when the boat rode along and it had the time to row along, it just did amazing stuff. And, our tails came up as soon as we kind of felt, the first few time checks coming through in training, to see where we were relative to the team against a strong team. And they were going well, we were always pushing. So, we started to sort of get ourselves in a good place. And yeah, coming into the Olympics, we were like, okay, so, I can't really remember much about, what happened we had Lucerne, didn't we?
Lucerne.
Which
I think
was the second one.
Lucerne was interesting because you guys came down in the heat before us, and we came down after you guys have set the world record.
That's right.
And we've gone quick to the halfway, and obviously we backed it down, and we're sitting there with the timesheet afterwards going, well, we've got two very fast fours going on here.
Yeah.
This is going to be exciting.
Exactly. And then what happened in the final? You guys beat us.
No, I think we got out to maybe half a length on you, and then you rolled us and got us by half a length in the finish. But we're two crews, we were way out in front of anyone else. And I think everyone was blown away by how far the two fours were out in front. Munich was where we turned the tables on you, and then obviously the other way around for the games.
Yeah, that's right. The Munich was the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it was that, and again, like the credit of Jürgen is his consistency.
Yes.
So, and if you go back through the years, his crews always lose that last race before the Olympics.
Yep.
So not that we wanted to, we always try to not let it happen, but we're like, damn it, you've done it again. Picking up that silver medal is almost like the ticket to a good Olympics. So we kind of come in, we're like, no, okay, so the Aussies are the favourites. I think you guys were sort of odds on.
Yeah, maybe. I still thought you guys were favourites, but yeah.
Yeah, well, again, it's probably what each other's press say to each other, but
correct.
we were like, great, we're the underdog, but we got this quiet confidence. And then I remember, was it the semi we met?
Yes,
in London.
Yep.
And we did our usual thing, right? You guys ran in front.
I know.
You sort of doubled along behind, and then we're like, okay, let's let it on. And we got off the water and we're like, hey, Jürgen, how was that? That was cool, huh? Hey, we beat the Aussies. Shit. We let them lead you to 1,000. Hey, like, what? You're not happy? No, he was well, not angry, but he was like, you can't do this anymore. Like, he had a real, bee in his bonnet about it. And so, you just sort of come up against your main opposition in the semi, at your home Olympics, and let's not, definitely talk a little bit about the impact of being at your home game, which, just mind-blowing, and the pressure and the expectation and all the negative stuff in equal measure to the positive stuff because of each other. It was quite a sort of few days between the semi and the final to sort of contemplate. A coach wasn't particularly happy, and this amazing event you're at. So we get to the night before, and basically Jürgen sits us down and says, right, and there've been a few interesting, everyone playing games and training around the lake, picking up different crews and being like, oh, we can't let them get past us and all this sort of BS. So we had a sort of, Jürgen was really vexed with us a few times. we kind of got through to the final in a sort of God, I almost can't wait for this to be over now.
Yeah.
And anyway, he said to us, right, guys, I don't care. Almost the way I heard it was, I don't care what happens on the finish line. I just need you to be in front at halfway. You are not to let these Aussies get in front of you at all. So we're like, oh, Jesus. I mean, that's quite a change of emphasis in the race plan. It's sort of like, going back to that consistency that we expect from Jürgen. Consistency like Pete and I would build up, in terms of delivery and, the race plan. It was like the night before the race of 4 years. He's basically saying, scrap the old plan. And he sort of did it with his usual confidence of like, I know you guys can do this. And you've got one last chance to prove it to me that you can do it.
Yeah.
So he was all very calm, very matter of fact. And, we went back to our rooms and we were talking about it. We're like, for a few guys in the crew, it was like, this doesn't compute. Like, this isn't what I don't know how to do this. And so we talked about it, and we talked about, the richness of the rhythm that we needed to find, that we had in training, but that we'd never really bought into. We talked about, the fact that he wouldn't say it if he didn't believe we could do it. He's not in the habit of breaking crews the night before his final for fun, So I remember, coming down to the course, and not only now is it the home Olympics, and we should win because we've done everything to prove that we can.
Yeah.
But now we've got to do it in a different way, and that's even when you go to training and your coach says, right, I know you can do this time, so this is what I'm going to set you, and you kind of have this apprehension in training, like, God, but it's like that dialed up a whole load.
Yeah.
So we get on. We were all quite quiet. We get onto the water, and I was nervous as hell, like the nervous I've ever been for a race. Like, what I talked about being sort of that chippy, happy idiot at the start line of Beijing, wasn't there this time. It took me half an hour to stop shaking in a warm up.
How's that?
Just, had to, we finally got into some of the, the sprint stages and the starts where you start to really sort of commit. The body finally settled down. Both felt great. I was like, okay, let's just do this. And in my head, I was like, I'm basically racing to 1,500 meters.
Yes. Yeah.
That's it. I can't think about the last 500. And that's pretty much what Jürgen said as well. It's like, look, don't worry about the last 500 meters. It'll look after itself.
Yeah.
Just get the 1,500 and do not let them in front. So, I mean, we sat on the start line, and there was an amazing moment where, you could hear on the tannoy, the lane announcements.
Yep.
So, we had lane 1, 2, and obviously we were lane 6. And then, so lane, because you guys were lane 4, right?
Yes. Yeah. The US were between us.
That's right. So we had, lane 4, Aussie, lane 5, USA, lane 6, GB. And then like 2 seconds later, 3 seconds later, we heard this roar coming down the water.
Yeah.
And that was like, oh my God, like starting to peak now.
Yes.
The
old arousal curve.
Yeah. Like Pete turned around and said, like, look, that was for us, boys. Like, this is it.
Yep.
So anyway, we set off. I had a great start. I refused to let the boat settle.
Yeah.
That was my job. So we just kept the pressure on, and the rate stayed a bit higher for a bit longer than normal.
Yep.
And when it did settle back to where we were, you could just feel the boat was rich. Like, just feel an intensity in the boat, which if you're doing that in training for 2K, your alarm bells would be ringing hard. Like, I'm going to blow my doors off. So yeah, we go through 1,000, and, I could see you guys so clearly. I was like, yeah. And then I think you guys pushed up. You got kind of close to half canvas.
Yep.
I think we responded just after, sort of just pushed out a little bit. And then, you come into that third 500 and your body's steaming. Your legs are starting to sort of, little lights going off. And then, the bit that Jürgen knew, especially home Olympics sort of stuff, the crowd.
Yep.
It was all
Yep.
the crowd. Both sides,
It was
like
nuts, wasn't it?
30,000 people.
Yep.
Absolutely insane. You couldn't hear Pete doing his calls anymore. We were looking for
Yep.
the markers, feeding each other. And then it wasn't a blind panic, but it was the home crowd effect.
Yep.
It was adrenaline, popping out your ears, everything on the dashboard was red, dials going everywhere, but we were absolutely crushing it, and
Yep.
nothing was going to stop us. I mean, knowing what you guys, kind of the journey you'd been on,
Yep.
knowing the intensity, we never had the relationship kind of like that me and Pete had with the Kiwis. We kind of
Yep.
knew them to speak to. We'd never really connected, but Drew Ginn was in this flooding boat. He's the deep red grave, and the moment we crossed the line, it was that weight of, okay, we've done our job, we've won the gold medal, home Olympics, great, but this wasn't just a win. Like,
Yep.
this felt like kind of your last race. And when you do that to somebody, I have there's not a guilt, because this is a fair field, fair playing field, but it's a significant weight of respect that, there's you've not just done something for yourself here. You've taken something away from somebody else, and it's going to hurt. And that is sport. That's
Yep.
why we're in it, for all the great time. But if you didn't have the bad times, if you didn't have those moments of, oh, Jesus, this is hurting now, in your heart,
Yep.
then it's not sport. And it's those moments that make rowing a sport for me.
Yeah.
So, I've never been able to say to you, I remember watching you in the press conference afterwards, and you could see viscerally how much that meant to you. And that's why that race was so special.
Mate, I love that you've said that. You've actually made me quite emotional. I think the reason why I love that year was because it took absolutely everything, and to know that we'd seen the very best of you guys on the day, and that's all I ever wanted as an athlete. Like, to go into a battle with people in your own boat where you feel like you got the best out of the crew, and then to know that you've been up against competitors who have to get the best out of themselves. Like, you're not being handed anything for nothing. Like, the amount of work that goes in. But the credit, I reckon, for you guys is home Olympic Games just adds that whole layer of pressure. And so what you've just shared there is absolutely awesome, particularly for our audience. I think appreciating that when you see some of these great athletes go at it and these great crews go at it, there's always a huge amount of respect. And I certainly know what you said about the crowd, Hodgie, but in that semi-final was the first time we heard it. And afterwards we were like, holy heck, like, fuck, that was loud. Like, that was really loud. Right. And so we knew it was coming in the final, but you're saying you couldn't hear Pete Reed. We couldn't hear James Chapman. And we'd sort of said, we know where the calls are. We know where the markers are. So all we just got to do is just keep going and see what's there. But the noise was consuming. Like, it was, and for a local crew like yourselves, that pressure, but to perform with that pressure, and GB across the board, right? How many crews did GB perform with at a home Olympic Games was just unbelievable, extraordinary to see. So I loved it. So tell us about Jürgen. What was it like when you got off the water to see him after medal ceremony and all that sort of stuff?
He's a bit of an enigma. Like, he sort of doesn't do well in the limelight.
Right.
And he shies away. Like, we came off the way, it took us ages to find him, I seem to remember. Like, no, I think straight off the water, he was there. He was like, but I remember, like, like an hour or two later, where the crowd has settled and gone and everything's sort of quieting down. And you just, like, you want to have a quiet moment with him, just to be like, hey, how we did
He
it.
did it.
And, he was already packing up the boat and he was doing his thing. He just was like, and that's really kind of one of the things that I love about the guy is that sort of, I don't know if he's letting his athletes have the limelight, but it's so internal for him,
Yeah,
you
right.
know,
Yeah.
it's right in there, and it means so much because of all the time and effort that he puts in.
Yep.
He's a training first every time he's set, always so early. Every decision he makes, it hurts him
Yep.
because every decision he makes, he's going to have to cut somebody or make somebody. You know, the emotion that guy goes through, and maybe his German upbringing, various things, just more stoic as a type of person, but he keeps it inside him. And I think if you're ever to crack that nut, the world will be consumed with memories and emotion, and it would be crazy. But
Yeah.
because he can keep it locked in. So yeah, I mean, you get off the water and it's a big hug, it's a thump on the chest. It's sort of really and there's not many words. I can barely speak English, but you just know it. You just know
Yeah.
it, and it's yeah. And there is a little bit of thank God we didn't lose. I don't want to be the athlete that breaks his Olympic run.
Oh,
Yeah,
that wouldn't have gone down well at all.
no, not at the Olympics, that's for sure. So, Andy Triggs Hodge, you failed to get Jürgen his next gold medal.
Out of here. Out of here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hey,
So, no.
tell me about, so recently you caught up with I think it was all the athletes, all the gold medal athletes in the UK might have come together for a dinner. Was that right? What was that like? That would have been amazing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was very interesting. Yeah, I mean, look, it was just a fun dinner. Uh,
Yeah.
it was a chance to sort of socialize, and there's no row machine in the corner with any sort of leaderboard. um, there
Still
wasn't
too.
even much. Yeah, exactly. There wasn't even much chit chat about how great we were. It was
Yeah.
just a bunch of people who'd followed a path together, and yeah, having a nice catch up. But
Yeah.
it was, I mean, again, it's uh to see those gold medals in the room,
Yeah.
expressed through those people, um, is just a phenomenal achievement of what he's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I said, he doesn't, you know, he hasn't written a book. Books have been written about him. Um, he doesn't, stand at the center. He's not in a sport that has a platform, so
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
just quietly sits in the background and, in a pretty modest house in Henley, and, he does his stuff. And, in one side, it's a tragedy that, someone like that can just hide away so easily.
Yeah.
But equally, it's a core part of why he was great.
Yeah.
And I love to bang the drum and shout and piss people off and do all sorts of stuff and as an athlete. And it was the opposite. It was like,
Yeah.
Hodgie, calm down. Just trying to, you know, show that side of, you know, and it probably suited his role as the sort of leader to not have antagonists like myself constantly annoying people. But I think he really exuded that balance
Yeah.
of internal motivation and calmness and objectiveness.
Yeah.
So again, seeing it in that room clear as day was fantastic. It's definitely what I mean, he deserved so much more.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but and to be in that room myself and see those great rowers around us. Obviously the Pinson and the Redgraves, but the Steve Williams and his head coach.
Yeah.
There was a load of people I haven't mentioned, but it was it was a good room to sit in, a big part.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. And an amazing thing to see, I think, to your point about it being understated. I actually love that, by the way, because when you sort of think about his impact on the sport and you sort of know about a little bit of the journey, and he was coached by Teo Kerner, and guys like Harold Yarling came through that sort of school of training and learning and development, and then you sort of watch the legacy that he's had with so many athletes that have now gone on in the sport and done all sorts of things, right? And so it's a ripple effect, and so to know that you all came together, I thought was really cool. To see all the medals, I think there must have been an image of all the medals they pulled together, and that's the weight of evidence, isn't it? Once you see that together, you realise how enormous the journey has been. I want to ask you the question about Rio, and then I'm going to come back to when you first started in rowing, but to have that period of time where you were sick and then make it back to the Olympic Games, what was that like? Because I know it seemed from in Australia, it seemed touch and go whether or not you were going to be right or not right and all that sort of stuff. We were hearing all sorts of rumours. It was like. Has Hodgie just gone way too hard in his training and this is it? He's never coming back? Like, what's happening here? But what was that like? What was that experience like? So Rio was extraordinary to see, GB crack it and get the 8. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, Rio and the year going up to Rio was a product of me breaking my body. I talked about the joy of breaking stuff, and that 4 years leading up to 2012.
Yep.
I mean, I fucked myself.
Yeah.
Not in any sort of singular way, but my body just wasn't the same afterwards. And looking at the performances I was sort of just hung on to it in 2013, 2014. I just didn't have the same intensity in training.
Yep.
It was good. It was still all right, still, in the team sort of stuff, but it wasn't, so, and again, like going back, I needed to be a different athlete. I needed to kind of change. So it wasn't a fear. I just was hyper aware that I'm going to have to bring something else to the party, and I'm going to have to get back and discover that. And, Jürgen was creating a really interesting dynamic by swapping the pairs and the 4 and the 8. So, the 8 was the focus in 2013. Then it reverted to the 4 in 2014, back to the 8.
Yeah.
And again, because he had such a depth of team, he developed such a strong culture of training ethos and a unified team like he'd never had before.
Yeah.
Everyone was really singing from the same hymn sheet. I mean, there's always sort of questions coming in, and there's always sort of, doubt, but in sort of a healthy way.
Yeah.
So, but he was able to play with the team like he's never done before.
Yeah.
So, we saw that change, swapping and changing 4 to 8, different stuff coming through in training. And again, like he must have been 70.
Yeah.
And, the way he was changing the program wasn't scary. He always dabbled with the program. There's always evolving programs and evolving thoughts and processes. And this just took it to sort of the next level, is the next Olympiad. But, you could see a guy who could like rely on 50 years of experience and kind of be like, all right, I mean, like, look, we've got 16 really strong athletes. Let's have some fun. He should see at the beginning of that Olympiad, I can see 5 gold medals, gold medal athletes.
Yep.
And he's like, okay, let's see if we can make that 10.
How's that?
So he realized that the strength of getting the gold medal winning experience was key. So taking the 4, putting it in the 8, bringing 4 more people. Let's see if we can win. First year, we can tolerate a silver medal if it goes badly or whatever. We've done that before. You can always go back to the 8, back to the 4. So to do what we did in Chungju was just, and again, it tested a few people because it definitely took people out of the comfort zone. It gave them the opportunities. There was different ways of thinking. That 8 was fantastic. And then we swapped it into the 4, and it was, and again, I mean, this is poignant because it's the first time I wasn't with Pete.
Yeah.
And he was in the 8, and I was with, is it Gregors, Mo, and George Nash.
That's right. Yep.
And again, like fresh athletes, and I'm starting to see sport now. I'm no longer the young guy, the attitude, with the get go and wanted to brick stuff up, and I'm seeing young guys coming in, and I'm like, wow, I've got to ride this, So I started to see my new role, and had a great season there, and then come back to training for the next season, so 2015 season, and I'm like, something's not right. Like, this is worse than it was last year.
Right.
So we did we sort of did some blood tests. There's nothing majorly out. The one thing that wasn't within the norm was my liver function test. Okay, all right, give it a few weeks. So dropped out of training for a week. And we kept measuring it every day. And it was like, okay, it's not moving. Okay, so you're an old athlete. Give yourself some time. You've got a lot of years in your body. So we gave it 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Okay, so it's still the same. In fact, it's getting a little bit worse. Okay. So took a month off. Then that turned into 2 months. So we're now into like October, November. We're knocking on the door of December.
Yeah.
I'm like, haven't trained. And I think they'd looked at the Epstein-Barr virus, and they'd seen that it was, I don't still really know how active it was, or if it was just a way of giving whatever I had, or feeling, maybe I was just knackered, and for the first time I had the authority in the team to say, I'm really knackered.
I get that.
But they needed to put a number to it to kind of tick the box. So anyway, I got to the other side of Christmas. I'd had my first kid by then.
Yep.
My wife had our first kid by then.
Good clarification, by the way.
Yeah, to get that one right, just in case anyone was wondering. So, life at home had changed a huge amount. And so, yeah, I had this moment where I was getting frustrated, and I was kind of getting quite angry.
Yeah.
I was getting to this moment where I was like, this isn't working anymore. Like, this isn't working for rowing. Obviously, it's not working for home life. No, I'm not the person I want to be. So I've got to make a change. And it was soon after Christmas, I was like, sod it. Right, Rio's done. I quit.
Right.
So went out to get a job. Started writing CVs, started writing all that stuff, just focusing purely on the next step. 2 Olympic gold medals, like, happy days.
Yep.
Cannot complain with that at all. And rowing sport gets taken away from the athlete loads of times. This is just another example. So went out and got the job I told you about. And I remember speaking to the CEO, a guy called Andy Mitchell, and he's like, don't you want to go back? I was like, of course I'd love to go back, but and he said, like, look, you've got the job, but if you want to take the time to go and finish your story, then the job will wait. So I was like, okay. I mean, holy cow, like, that's, and true to that guy, alongside Jürgen, he is the best industry leader of all time, like, that I know of. Absolutely phenomenal type of person, but that's another story. Well, anyway, I kind of put in my head, I was like, okay, well, look, there's the door's ajar there. When is the last time that my blood needs to be right to go back to rowing? And I kind of said, well, I was sort of like 12 months before.
Yep.
And so, through spring, April, May, blood's still not right. So I'm still not training. June, July comes around. I'm like, okay, so I'm pretty much a year away now. I've got to make a decision. And the bloods weren't right. And I sort of said to myself, well, sod it. Like, let's go and break it. So I stopped doing the blood tests, and I just started training. So my first training session was a 20-minute bike ride. So I just cycled down the road and back again. Woke up the next day, and I was like, oh, haven't broken myself.
I feel all right.
So I did 25 minutes the next day. Didn't break myself. And then the next day, 30 minutes. And I just started building up.
Progress.
And then within a month, I was sort of starting on the ergos. So this was like July, this would be August. So I trained through August. Ergos. Very, very sort of step-by-step incremental back in. And each day I didn't break myself. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just do it again tomorrow, but a bit more.
Yeah.
And obviously with Jürgen, so I got myself back into the team environment when they came back in, what would it have been? Late September, I guess, October.
Yep.
2 session days. And then leading up to Christmas, I'm back onto 3 session days. And each day I'm like, I'm not going crazy. I'm just doing in the ranges and,
Being smart about it.
being smart, the textbook sort of approach, which when you're young, you're like, throw that textbook out. Well, now I'm old. I'm like, give me that textbook. I'm going to stick to it. Now it's your fault.
I'm now got a zone to work through.
Exactly. So, so I'm my 2K still way off, or I didn't do a 2K for ages, but my half hours were way off. I was still not the athlete I was.
Yep.
Got through to the side of Christmas. I was getting stronger, started doing more of the pieces, some of the race trials.
Yep.
They were like, some of them were good. Like, some of them put me right back in the top of the team in terms of on water performance.
Right.
Okay, cool. So, I'm not a complete, idiot. I'm actually, I can hold my own.
Yep.
Some of the trials were absolutely diabolical, and I won't go into that, but there were some moments where I was like back to like my 20-year-old self, literally running boats into pontoons.
Really?
Yeah. That's another story again. But so it was far from plain sailing, but there was a moment where, Jürgen kind of sat me down and says, right, for the past 4 years, we've been building up a very strong team. And basically, you're in the 8, and the 4 is going to be the lead boat.
Yep.
And there was a part of me which was like, it took me right back to Athens, actually.
Right. Yeah.
Because in Athens, I just won trials.
Yep.
And turned up to training the next day, or a few days later, and Alex Partridge wasn't there because we were training 2 locations.
Yes. Yeah.
And Alex had got the call up to the 4, to the top boat, and I was left in the 8.
In the 8.
And so then it was like, I was an idiot. I didn't have any influence or power. So I just shut up and got in the 8 and came last at the Olympics. And, Alex obviously went through his crazy time with his bus lung and missed the game, but he was on for a gold medal.
Yeah.
And then I was having the same conversation, the other end of my career, right, Hodgie, you're in the 8. Completely different team, mind you. But there was that pang of like, shit, how much do I fight for this? I think I'm worth it for. I think I've done enough, but it's too close. And it just, if I'm honest, looking back on it, just doesn't make sense.
Yep.
It was a way to put me in the 4.
Yeah.
The 4 had everything they needed with Stan at stroke and, Mo and the guys and, Tom and Alex and George.
Yeah.
So, but, there's this bit of me was like, okay, I got over that and I looked at the 8 and I was like, actually, I think we're going to have some fun here. So we went into this 8 and the guys in the 8, I can honestly say, were absolutely incredible. They were a whole different spectrum of experiences. Some have been in the team as long as I had. Some were fresh in. But we kind of shared, I think, an energy of like an angry dog. Like we wanted to take something, and we wanted to shake it as hard as we could until it scattered into a million pieces.
Dog with a bone.
It was not with a bone. the bone was the other side of the fence. We wanted to take the fence and rip the fence to pieces to get the bone. And, there were conversations we had, which were like, kind of sort of led by Thatcher. He's just generally a very angry guy. I love him to bits for it. He's rough, he's angry, it's a very, very rich emotional person. And then you got others like Paul Bennett, Tall Paul, who's just got anger and frustration bleeding out of every pore. Like, seriously, he picked at my kid one day. No, my boy was like, he's 12 months old or something. And he kind of he just looked at the kid and said just burst out crying. Right. The boy felt it. Anyway, in training, we were absolutely flying.
Yep.
Like we did some absolutely incredible stuff. And again, like Pete knows all the numbers, but we did like 2 1000s, and they were like well over 100% in more or less still consistency. It's the sort of stuff you like, was there stream? Was there something else going on? But the boat always fizzed. Like, when it has that energy. And when you put the foot down, there were times when it didn't. Like, we tried things and it didn't work, so we'd come back. But when we came back to the what would probably end up being the crew order and the mindset, it fizzed. It just absolutely, it felt light. It felt not effortless, but it felt like every ounce you could put into it equal boat speed. That magic moment, you can't push against it. You're always pushing with it. And it, it was definitely a very different style of rowing to what I was used to. I had to learn a lot. I was, again, like this reinvention phase, I was peaking in terms of like, who's this new athlete? Like, he's not the athlete he was. He's not as strong, but he's doing something good. But we definitely had some trouble because every time we went to race through the World Cups, we were slow. Right. And there's this really fascinating moment, and it's sort of referenced a few times in various training, but, do you go to race? You bring out your magic sauce for the race? Like, no, you don't. You do what you do in training. And it's repeat it. Yeah. So we got to the last World Cup, and we had just been trounced by the Germans by a full length in the semi or the heat. And we're like, we can't do this again. Like, we're doing too much good stuff in training to race like this.
Yeah.
So we had a pretty big conversation. We said, like, look, let's just go out and row our training session. And we know that we go really fast at 34. So let's race at 34. And like, really? It's like, yeah, it's on paper. Look how fast we've gone at 34.
It works. It works.
Yeah. So that's what we did. We came off the start, 45, and we pushed the rate down to 34 in the final.
Yep.
And we go into juggernaut mode, like diesel engines, spitting out fumes, just absolutely hooning on it.
Chugging.
And at 34, seriously, like taking chunks out of ourselves. And we realized that we're neck and neck with the Germans.
How's that?
At 34, they're like 4 picks above us, 5 picks above us. And, they end up beating us by 3 feet in that final. And at that moment, bearing in mind, this is the last World Cup before the Olympics.
Yep.
What does Jürgen's crew do every time? They lose. But this time, we lost by 3 feet. At that moment, I was like, we've just won the Olympic Games.
We're on.
100%. And that's what I told all the guys. I was like, we will train hard, no question. We will do everything we need. But I can guarantee you that we will go across the line first in Rio. And sitting on the start line, like, the confidence I had in the crew was totally unquestionable.
Yeah.
Like, everything we'd done up to that point, and again, it was definitely a crew of, don't forget, it was angry, it was fizzing. We said stuff that pissed each other off. It wasn't a comfortable crew all the time. We joked and laughed, and there's some stuff, but, when it was on the water, it was business, and it was raw, it was edgy, it was beautiful. I absolutely loved being in that boat. Yeah. The first 1,000 meters, that was the moment I was like, the last stroke, I'm going to break myself. This is the race that I've been not sort of scared of, but a little bit scared of for the whole of this last year.
Yeah.
Now I can break myself. So I went out to break myself. I went out just to destroy whatever my body was hanging on to. And just, the first 10 strokes, the hardest 10 strokes you can do. The second 10 strokes are the hardest 10 strokes you can do. And again, we pushed the rate down. I think we were like 36, 37. But we just had that relentless application of, for me, it's just anger. It was just like, go rip it to pieces, absolutely destroy it. But we did it together. And the boat, I mean, we had a full length by halfway over, a very, well, I don't know, but they'd always been there and about in the last 3 years. Yeah. And for that final, we were miles ahead. And it's, as a way to end a career, I had some amazing, people ask me like, which is your favorite medal? And the only reply I've got is like, they like your kids.
Yeah.
The first, the first is your first. Like nothing can take away your first gold medal.
Yep.
The second was your home Olympics, and rating yourself and the elevation of sense of arena.
Yep.
And the third was to finish by the event I shouldn't have been at. Having taken a year off the year before the Olympics, I had no right to be there. But then to do it in such emphatic style was incredible. And I'm blessed to have known that was my last games going in. When I took the oar out of the gate for the last time after that final, it's like, that's it. I walked away. And not many athletes get to have that sense, that feeling of this is it, with a gold medal around your neck. So yeah, it was very, very fortunate and privileged and lucky and worked for it all. But yeah, it was a great way to end.
Yeah, and it was a pleasure to watch, mate. I think I remember watching it, and I was reminded of the fact that we don't always get to choose how we end our careers, and I know that all too well. We don't always have the result we want. But what I loved and what you just described there that really resonates is every 8 that has the confidence to get the rate down and get the rhythm right and drive at every stroke. US 2004, Canadians 2008, you guys in Rio. It's almost like these crews and the New Zealanders, same thing. Like, so it's almost like they're doing this sort of stuff. It's right there, but they keep sort of just spinning it up a little bit. Yeah, spinning it up, chasing. And as soon as the crew get the confidence to go, no, jam that, get it down, get it long, get it strong. And your description of just that sheer grit and determination, that for me, and I'm going to ask you this question as to your difference. What do you see different between an 8 going well, a 4 going well, pair going well? What's similar, what's different? That's where I'm going to go with this. But an 8 requires that energy, and it also requires that sort of real confidence to get it down and get it in the hips and get it low working for you. Because if you don't, you can sort of tap up here, but before you know it, you start running off speed, but you're actually burning energy, aren't you? So what's your take on the similarities or differences between the boat classes?
Yeah. I mean, so look, I'm a big fan that every boat is rowed differently. And, it depends on the attitude of the people. It depends on the physiology. So, this answer is definitely specific to my experiences.
Yeah.
And I'd never say, like, this is definitely how to do it, because, I've seen so many boats being won in so many different ways. But for me, like, the pair was, my favorite drill as what we did in the pair, and that to work through some of the falls, was this idea that you put the blade in the front and you stop. So you do it as a stationary boat to start with. You just stop, wait, and then you go, and then you start moving. So then you do the same. You push it in, and you stop, and you feel the boat and your momentum push against it. And it kind of gets pushed back, and then you go. And then you keep doing it, and you feel like you realize actually how much time there is on the catch to put the blade in and do nothing. And then you start looking at the mechanics of that, and you start to understand that when you put the blade in at that angle, the first thing that happens is that it sort of goes out, and it put more water. So if you can put your blade in and let you scoop more water, the boat will actually, your blade will keep going forward.
Yep.
So if you can let the boat do that, you then have given yourself a few extra inches. And I kind of realized that the boat can do so much more around the catch.
Yep.
So then I started really believing in this idea that, length, physical length is one thing, but kind of run length is another. And that, I love that exercise, because then you start to feel people who like just want to get on it.
Yeah.
Whoa, calm down. Like, let's put the parasol up and like enjoy this bit, because this is really nice.
Yeah. We're not still eating anymore.
Yeah. And then you take it up to 36 or 35.
Yep.
And then you start to feel the same thing. You've got time. And then you can work out, well, actually, where am I going to put the pressure? Where am I going to go? And then you realize through the 90 is like this really safe space. Like, you're not going to slip. The boat's only going to go one way. But let's see how far we can go with that. Let's smash it. You try and smash a boat at 90 degrees, you're not going to smash anything. The boat's just going to fuck off.
Yeah.
So you feel how brutal you can be. And then you start to see, you can sort of break down that dry phase. And then the finish obviously is super loose. Loose is fast. Like, just let it come. So you start to sort of really to break down the dry phase, not just as how do you start working as early as you can and finish working as late as you can, and try and have this. I started to see this, this time and patience where you're getting loads of boat run with your blade in the water. And then you go to the other extreme of like complete brutality of like, how can you like deadlift? How can you fling a bar into the ceiling sort of thing? And then you and challenge yourself, like try and get your weight off the seat, come off your seat, and you can't do it, but you can damn well try. And suddenly you realize you're pumping out massive speeds. And then you let it out the back. So I always love that idea in those sort of the pairs and the fours. And then the 8, the learning I got was, and it was sort of like, again, it was like the attitude of Saatchi's stroke. It was sort of the opposite, and it took me ages. So I went from a boat which is long, long reach, long hang on the back, and just let it, to an 8, which was like, well, sit up a lot higher. So don't have that swing. Like you've missed the boat if you kind of get
behind it. Yep.
So don't do that bit, but be, it's crazy thing about, just get on the fucking front. Alarm bells were ringing in the early days. Like, no, come on. There surely must be a more subtle way of doing this. But no, it wasn't. It was get the blade in and just squat jump from the first moment you can. Because you don't have the body length, you still had physical length. And then so the 8 started to kind of, how do I describe it? It was each stroke you'd launch it down the track. So it was less about sort of nurturing and sort of keeping this boat swinging along. It was like, and I don't want to say thumping it down the track, because that's the wrong analogy. It wasn't that brutal. And again, it was like I was saying earlier, you couldn't work on it because it would go.
Yeah.
There was just, it's not like, you really do a power clean.
Yep.
And all the segments move well, and suddenly it's up by your base, and it's up here. It's like doing that every time, but with 8 people.
Yeah.
And it just worked so well. And I mean, fair credit. Whenever I tried to have a suggestion of, bit of time around the front, the boat went, Bob. I was like, all right, scrap the idea, ignore me. I'm just going to get on board. And it went really well.
Well, so, and what you're describing, Hodgie, I think, and this is really great for people listening, is your style of that middle and finish movement that you were so famous for. And you talk about loose and all that sort of stuff and how you connect out front. But that body movement that you had in the pair and the four was really evident. And that was one of the reasons why I think you had the ability not only to get the speed at the start, but also wind at the end. But in the 8, I was always fascinated once I saw that you're in the 8 to go, I reckon that body swing, it's almost like the acceleration of the boat means you're not actually able to be that effective. And what you've just described there is just being taller at the back and getting that work profile much further forward ahead of the pin. That's a massive adaptation, right? But once the penny drops in a big boat, it's like, oh, okay, now we know what to do here. But it does take all 8 to buy into that fully, doesn't it?
Yeah. But then, I remember the Canadian 8 back in 2004. They went super fast and they had a long, long lie back.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You just have to buy into whatever the majority of the boat can do, or the key person, or whatever it is. There's loads of different ways of doing it, and I think for me in the Rio 8, I was no longer that dominant force. I think I helped to hopefully give them confidence and hopefully kind of get a bit more out of them come race day than they may thought they were possible. But it was them, it was those guys who were leading that. And as soon as I figured out how to get on board with that, it was like, okay, let's just do that.
That's all.
And it was fantastic. Yeah. That's the secret.
Yeah.
I think that the technical side is always changes. There's always different emphases and different ideas. The key is the psychological bit of getting on, really truly buying in to an idea, whether you agree with it or not. And that is the way. And once you've done that as a crew, that's when you see fast 8s.
Yep.
It's I'd say it's like 50% psychology.
Yep.
25% physiology, 25% technique.
Yep. Love that. No, mate, that is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So here's a question for you. Let's change speed ever so slightly. Let's go right back to when you first started rowing. What did you love about the sport when you first started? And then how does that differ from what you loved about the sport later in your career? Or was it the same?
Good question. So when I first started at uni, my second year at uni, so I was 19. Before that, I'd been a bit of a rugby player, but not much, and sort of cycled to school and stuff like that. So I came in from a pretty low bar, and I started because a friend of mine, I kind of fallen out of love with in love with rowing, with rugby.
Yeah.
And I was looking for something else to do, and a friend said, "Try rowing. It's nice social sport. You'll get fit, and I'm enjoying it." So I turned up to the Precious Fair on the second year, and I was like, "Sign me up." And the coach, the guy called Ed Green, just was like, "Brilliant. Sign right here, mate." I was like, "Why is he so excited? Why is he so happy?" And then it was a little university called Stafford University in the town of Stoke-on-Trent in the Midlands, and it was not a rowing university. We had a few boats which had been painted with emulsion. I think they managed to buy one pair, which was 4, which was half decent, but
that.
It was, and the guy who led it, Ed Green, he was like the coach, he was the captain, he was the treasurer, the social sec, he was the boatman, he trailered, he did everything. And what I saw was a group of like people who did some rowing.
Yeah.
But I saw one guy who was obsessively passionate about something for the first time in my life. And so I came from Yorkshire. I was crap at school. I got shit grades. I wasn't sporty. I was always picked last for football and all the other sports. In rugby, I was never given the ball. I was just told to push people over. So I had a chat with some school friends, and they were like, we had like a poll of who was the least likely to go to an Olympic Games.
Really?
And that was me. I can't describe to you how much of a Luddite I was before I found rowing.
But you're winning at the start already.
Yeah. It was, yeah. So what I found was a sport where this guy just wanted to, he kind of wanted to break stuff.
Yep.
He wanted to have some fun, but he wanted to try his hardest and do something. And he kept fighting against, bigger universities, the establishment. We had no place to belong in so many circles in rowing. I already felt like, so, going to staff was not a big change from where I was where I grew up. But when I left staff, I made a decision. I was like, well, I rowed for 2 years, quite enjoyed it. It's the first time I felt I could put something in and it's actually had a positive impact. Like usually if I try hard, it just means I do something bad, better, bad,
Yeah.
faster, or, I just break stuff more or just become less relevant or, just get more of a bollocking from the teacher. And rowing was the first time that I was actually able to lean into something and it be like, oh, good, you're going faster, well done. But, oh, wow.
Okay.
So, and when I left university, I said, well, look, I tried to get a job in the environment for the environmental science degree, but it didn't work out. So I was like, well, let's take a year out. So, and I decided rather than go somewhere fancy, I'd go to Surrey in West London, and I'd try rowing for a year. So I found Multi-Boat Club, found Pete Shepherd, who's the coach there. And again, it's sort of like that. I was just waiting for the day when someone said, stop it. Like, stop annoying us. You're crap. Like, piss off. And to be fair, they said that a few, there's quite a few companies who sort of said that in one way or another a few times at Moldy when I was there. But my results weren't correlating with what I saw, what I was hearing.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm still improving. I'm going to keep at this until I stop improving. And, one thing led to another, went to trials, didn't completely embarrass myself. My ergo score was improving. Made the under 23 team for the last year of under 23s, went to the Worlds, came sixth. Should have done better, but we kind of cocked it up in a couple of ways. But it's sort of late, like, my mum, she called me about 2 months after moving down to London. And she was like, Andrew, what are you doing? Like, rowing isn't going to be a career. You don't earn money. You're not going to earn money rowing. Like, get a job. I'm really worried about you. And I was like, Mum, I need to try this. I'm young. I'm stupid. I make bad decisions. But, I've got a job now, so I'm paying for myself. But you gotta just let me do this. And she was like, oh, fine, like, just okay, do it, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I went to the 23 World in Linz in Austria, and obviously invited mum and dad out. And as I was wearing the Union Jack on my under 23 thing, she's like, "Oh, I get it. You actually can do this. You're actually all right." Yeah. And then, so look, my journey into the sport was all about just try and be a bit better.
Yep.
And there's going to be people who will tell you shouldn't be here. There is people who don't understand you or relate to you, but you've got to try. And I think my story throughout my rowing career has always just try and be a bit better. If you can't be the same as the day before, if you've got to reinvent yourself, you've got to change, you've got to adapt. You just got to try harder. You've got to find another brick wall to bang your head against, but just try and be a bit better than the day before. And that sort of is the core mantra through my whole rowing. And the success bit, look, as a kid, I wasn't expecting any of this. No one lined me up and said, this is it. So every success has just been a joy.
Yeah.
Like being an unexpected gift. And I can't, and the only bit I can control and do anything about is the training. So, that's the bit I got hung up on.
Mate, absolutely brilliant. And I wasn't aware of the start. I mean, I was aware a little bit that you'd started late, but I certainly wasn't aware of your take on the fact that you weren't overly great at sport, and probably had people looking at you going, "Why are you still here?" I had Peter Anthony, who saw me down at Mercantile Rowing Club early days as a kid, and it was 1993, so first year after school. And I was down there persistently training. And then apparently Pants told me on the water one day, he's like, is it when's someone going to teach this kid how to actually row properly? He's doing all his work, but teach him how to row properly.
But mate, that's the bit you discovered, and that's the bit you know. Yeah, and that, seriously, like, you got to have that. The greatest athletes are the ones who discover. They don't read the textbook.
Yep, I agree.
They absorb it all. They listen. They watch, but they work it out for themselves. And it's that the good coaches nurture that the voyage of discovery, rather than transcribe a book or their own ideas. It's
yeah, and I've said to a few people, particularly in the last few years, where I describe that grit and determination's in you. Like it can be fostered and developed, but generally it's in you. It's come from somewhere. Because you persisting long before people were suggesting that you're actually going to make it. That comes from within, and I describe it to people as to that intrinsic motivation we get from doing the activity at the start, and it can become quite extrinsic, as we know, become external. But how do we keep internally driven and motivated and connected to why we enjoy doing it? And it sounds like you had that in spades. So let's do this. Let's finish off with a few what I call short stroke questions. We'll bring it home now, and I'm not going to start with the typical lazy question I will do, but I will ask you a question about your favourite venue in a second. If you had to choose between your pair 4 or 8 rowing, what's your preferred boat class?
Oh, preferred boat class. I'll say this now as a sort of like old knackered athlete. Well, no, not an athlete, an old knackered ex-rower. I'm in the 8. I love it. I did manage to go for a row with a couple of guys a few months ago for a 50th birthday.
There you go.
Yeah, I was brilliant. It's the interactions, the speed, the sense of God, we're good. The talking it up. Just the one thing, just never look at the video afterwards. Just live in the moment and then move on. If you go in and analyze it, you're doomed. The 8. I just love the 8, even with a cock.
Love it. And it's interesting you say that about watching videos. I've done a little bit of masters rowing in the last couple of years. And my memory is, I'm really good with the blade around through the front turn. And then you see the video and it's like,
That's exactly what I thought. I was like, oh my God, my touch is...
it's like, I'm saying to myself, did I even want to get my blade wet?
Yeah. Hey, that's the mark of a great rower, right? Doesn't even get the blade wet. Okay,
yeah, that's right. The boat's still moving, so it's okay. Question for you then: were you into coffee? Did you have coffee pre-row, after row? What was your preferred way of getting ready?
Come on, I'm British. Cup of tea, mate.
Cup of tea.
Cup of tea. What did I get ready? Ham, jam, and cheese sandwich. That was my all the food groups in there. But no, cup of tea. Just I tried those caffeine gels once or twice, but they just sent me bananas. I started shaking. Didn't need any of that. And the coffee was even too rich for me. Like, I didn't need that. I was just, good cup of tea, and just the atmosphere. Just being in a place that I thought, what the hell am I doing here? Come on, wake up. So
let's do this then. Talking about places, I ask this regularly, and I always enjoy hearing the responses. Favorite venue for training or racing over the years, and why?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll cheat. I've got loads. The place where I started at Staffordshire was a place called Rudyard Lake.
Describe it for us.
Sorry?
Describe it for us.
Oh yeah, so it was called Rudyard Lake. It was named, I think Rudyard Kipling was named after the lake. And it was a lake, a dammed lake, built to supply all the canal network around there. But it was 2.5 kilometers long in this valley. And the one moment specifically, we were up early, boated before it got light, one winter's day, and clear day, stars in the sky, not a breath of wind. And as the sun started to kind of like etch out onto the skyline, you could start to see the whole hillside glistening with this really heavy frost. And it was pure moment, like just so clean. It was, the definition was incredible. And then as you saw a bit more, you started to see how flat the lake was. And then you could see the bow wave just sort of emanating out across the lake behind you. And then as the light came up a bit more, you then saw there was this mist hanging off the lake, off the water by about a foot. So you kind of rowing through, our heads are kind of rowing through it. And it was just one of those moments. And I was like, damn, like I'm in the right place here right now. No one else is seeing this. So I'll always have a soft spot for that lake. Silveretta, our altitude training camp in Austria. I've left more of my soul up there than I've cared to count, but that's where you go up an athlete and you come down a champion or not. That's where you put the hard time in, and especially in the early days, we should stay in these huts, like the builders' huts. So it was a really raw kind of feeling, like you had to go up the hill for food, but you came down and slept in the huts, and you had the cows around. And there was no bells and whistles. It was a hut, and that was it. Beds, dormitories, sort of stuff. And there was I felt so grounded there doing that stuff. You'd jump in the back of the pickup, that would take you up to the top of the dam where you'd row, and then the water, this sort of like marine blue, alpine lake, glacial lake. You're 2,000 meters altitude, so the air is clear, clean. It could have been, often it was like 36 degrees down in the valleys, horrible. But up here it was like high 20s.
Yeah.
And then just the views, and then the weather. When the weather came in, you knew about it. Like it arrived. It's like, here's a wacky great storm, guys. We decided to one day have a little row for some reason. I can't remember I don't think you even need a reason. We just got naked. We're all just rowing butt naked and discover why men don't row butt naked because it's really painful. But 500 meters in, this whacking great storm rolls up, and the wind goes up. We're like, this is a really bad time to get naked. We're rowing down the lake, and I like clipping it up because we needed to get back before the waves dumped us in. And bearing in mind, the water's like 3 or 4 degrees Celsius. It's cold water. So and we spent like nearly 3 weeks up there. So by the time you've through the first week, you're getting to know people. Again, you're discovering your teammates, and there's no distractions. It's just beautiful. And then, other locations, of course. Lucerne, fantastic. I weirdly like Munich. I liked it because the water was so clear; you could see right to the bottom.
Yeah,
although it
you
was
felt like you're floating nowhere in space, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was phenomenal. And then I just done some amazing training camps around the world. So there's lots, but it's I've always been attached to the environment through my science degrees and water management degree, and I just love being on water. It's a happy place. So, even the Thames has got a soft spot for me.
Well, it's interesting you say love being on water, because I reckon when people have asked me what did I love about the sport for all those years, it was just the feeling of being out floating and then just carving the boat through water. And having surfed all my life and all that sort of stuff, it was always the Yarra River. When I first went on it as a kid, 17, 18 years of age, it was like, oh, I'm home. Like, it wasn't the ocean, it wasn't the coast, but it was like that sense of water was something I really enjoyed. So let's finish off with this. If you had favorite sort of training session that was a go-to training session you enjoyed doing, and then the hardest training session you reckon you did in your career, what were they?
Go-to session. The hardest was also my favorite in terms of ergo workout, which was just a half hour.
Yep.
You know, my body was built for long distance, and had there been like a 5K Olympic class, then I think I would have maybe even able to show more strength. Um, but people laughed at me in training because I was actually useless at power strokes.
Yep.
Like, couldn't pull the skin up a rice pudding, but I could maintain more or less that split for half an hour.
Wow.
Like I could just keep churning out a good amount of power. I just couldn't produce masses of it. So the half hour, rate 20.
Rate 20.
Yeah, just, you know, and since, people, I had some good scores in my time, and now they're nothing compared to what the team's doing. It's just mental what they're able to do. But so that was always, and now I feel really bad. So that was my, but what did the go-to sessions, I loved, like, some of my favorite on water work was when we were down in Aviz in Portugal, which was a very big long lake, like 22 kilometers long. And in an 8, sort of key into a good chunky 19 and just crush it, and just go out and see the boat speeds get faster and faster. And actually, some of the stuff we did in the pair with Pete, there, we would go out for like a 20K session. We'd be coming home and something would happen. Like, maybe it was a technical call, maybe it was just we got close to being home. You didn't think we were working harder, but I really remember like starting to like just get faster and faster and faster, and coming like into the last 2K and with like 2-minute splits. Okay, it's 159 Pete. Could back off now. Okay, 158. Do you want to go back? 157? Okay, all right, we'll just do 157 for a bit. And you just find this magic speed, this stuff that you like, damn it, how do I bottle that? How do I, can we do this in a race at 36, please? And those moments are, that's the moments you just, again, it's like being on the lake at Staffordshire, when everything makes sense, everything's put into place. If you can have an Olympic final right now, you destroy everybody, all that sort of stuff. It was not my go-to session, but that's the bits. If you can get to a place where you can have those, which generally happened at the end of like a 20K session. Deep in like a 200K week, absolutely exhausted, but we're going really fast. That's cool. Let's do more of that.
Yeah. Well, and what you're describing there, mate, is I loved that feeling as well. Like, it was almost like physiologically and mentally, your body and mind open up. And the movement becomes sweeter, more coordinated, everything relaxes. And so that harmony that you get for your own movement, but also harmony with your teammate, where you're no longer pushing it or having the inefficiencies. And it's almost like, why did it take us so long to get here?
Yeah, exactly. It's one thing I've reflected on a lot recently, or since the sport. Like, we do so much to try and work out how to make the boat go faster. It's like the thing, this thing will unlock this, we should do this. And I kind of realize there's so much stuff we can not do. There's some stuff we can just take out. And there's like, I don't know, like 5%. And it's emotional, it's psychological, it's technical, it's physiological. There's something, if we could just, when we realize, or those things drop away naturally.
Yep.
Because you're 22K into a session, you're knackered, you just can't do that little thing anymore. And suddenly you go a lot faster. When we work out those bits, that's when I think we get close to being able to replicate those great speeds. Because we all know what to do. I don't think we all know what we need to not do.
Yeah.
And it's small. And often we don't know it ourselves. You've got to have someone else to tell you.
Yeah.
And that was sort of my journey through Rio. It was like some really great people saying, don't be a dick, don't do that. Look, we go really slowly when you do that. You're right.
Do that way.
Yeah. Hang on. That's it.
Yeah. But what you're describing there, what I love about that is, and I'll use the term sort of flow state. I think that ability to let yourself drop in, everything drops away. Like, you're no longer worrying about the future. You're no longer worrying about the past. You're not judging things positive and negatively. It's just like you're in flow. And for me, and that's what I used to really love with the pair, was you get that moment and all of a sudden it's like, all the things I was worrying about or trying to do, like
Yeah.
I've let that go. And now you've found this energy, this feel of this thread. And it's almost like, oh, that's it. And as you said there, the boat speed's almost like the outcome that surprises you, not the thing you're trying to push for, which is so cool.
Exactly.
Magical.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It's a good sport.
Mate, absolutely love it. Hey, Hodgie, I've really enjoyed the time with you. And for you, mate, I just reckon your career, to know that we've been able to capture this and share this with the audience for Mercantile Radio, well done on everything that you have done. I know you're a massive ambassador for the sport, beyond the sport, in terms of rowing and the 3 gold medals, but the whole Olympic journey. Really appreciate you joining us on Mercantile Radio and taking the time. Andrew Triggs Hodge, thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for the memories.
Mate, great to catch up.
Good stuff, man. I really appreciate that.